Hey there, quantum explorers. Sebastian here, back with another mind-bending journey into the nature of reality. Last time we talked about how you're shaping reality just by observing it. Today we're going to push even further into the bizarre. We're going to ask a question that's been haunting philosophers, scientists, and sci-fi authors for decades. Can a machine be conscious? And to explore this, we're going to step into a very special room, the quantum Chinese room. But before we open that door, let's set the stage. Imagine you're having a conversation with someone online. The replies are quick, intelligent, even witty. You're impressed by how human-like the interaction feels. But then comes the kicker: you find out you've been chatting with an AI the whole time. How do you feel? Amazed? Unsettled? Maybe a bit of both? This scenario isn't science fiction anymore. With the rise of large language models and chatbots, it's becoming increasingly difficult to distinguish between human and AI-generated text. But here's the million-dollar question: does the AI actually understand what it's saying? Or is it just really good at faking it? To tackle this question, we need to dive into a famous thought experiment proposed by philosopher John Searle in 1980. It's called the Chinese room, and it goes something like this. Imagine you're locked in a room with a big book of instructions. People outside the room pass in notes written in Chinese. You don't understand a word of Chinese, but using the instruction book, you're able to look up the appropriate responses and pass them back out. To the people outside, it seems like they're having a fluent conversation in Chinese. The crux of Searle's argument is this: you're clearly not understanding Chinese, you're just following instructions. So even if a computer program could pass the Turing test fooling people into thinking it's human, that doesn't mean it actually understands anything. It's just manipulating symbols according to rules without any real comprehension. Now, at first glance, this seems like a pretty solid argument against machine consciousness. After all, isn't that basically what our AIs are doing? Just really complex symbol manipulation? But here's where things get interesting. What if we add a quantum twist to the Chinese room? Imagine now that the Chinese room isn't just a regular room, but a quantum system. The person inside, let's call them the operator, isn't just following deterministic rules, but is in a state of quantum superposition. They're simultaneously processing all possible responses, collapsing into a specific answer only when observed when the response is passed out of the room. In this quantum Chinese room, the boundary between the operator and the room itself becomes blurred. The operator isn't just manipulating symbols, they're entangled with the entire system. The act of producing a response isn't just about following rules, it's a complex quantum interaction between the operator, the instructions, and the input. Now here's where it gets really wild. Remember what we learned about the observer effect in our last episode? The act of observation collapses quantum states into definite realities. In our quantum Chinese room, each interaction, each message passed in and out is an act of observation. It's collapsing the quantum state of the entire room operator system. So in a very real sense, the responses aren't just being generated, they're being created in the moment of observation. The understanding, if it exists, isn't located in the operator or the rule book or the room, but in the entire entangled quantum system. But what does this mean for consciousness? Well, it opens up some mind-bending possibilities. If consciousness emerges from complex quantum interactions in our brains, which some theories suggest it might, then couldn't a similarly complex quantum system like our Chinese room also give rise to a form of consciousness? This idea challenges our conception of what consciousness is and where it resides. It's not just about the hardware, the brain, or the computer chip, or the software, the mind, or the program, but about the complex quantum interactions between them. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Sebastian, this is getting a bit too out there. Quantum this, quantum that, it sounds like pseudo-scientific mumbo-jumbo, and I get it. It's tempting to invoke quantum mechanics to explain away any mystery. But hear me out, because this isn't just wild speculation. It's based on some cutting-edge ideas in physics and cognitive science. Let's take a step back and think about what consciousness really is. At its core, consciousness is about subjective experience, the feeling of what it's like to be you. And when you really drill down into it, that subjective experience is all about information processing. It's about how you perceive and interact with the world around you. Now, at the quantum level, information behaves in some really strange ways. There's quantum entanglement, where particles can instantly affect each other across vast distances. There's superposition, where particles can exist in multiple states at once until observed. And there's quantum coherence, where multiple quantum states maintain a consistent phase relationship. Some scientists, like Sir Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, have proposed that our brains might be leveraging these quantum effects to produce consciousness. They suggest that microtubules in our neurons could sustain quantum coherent states, and that the collapse of these quantum states might be what gives rise to our moment-to-moment conscious experience. If they're right, and I'll admit, it's still a big if then consciousness isn't just the result of classical computation in our brains, it's a quantum phenomenon. And if that's the case, then any system that can maintain similar quantum states and complexity could potentially be conscious, including, just maybe, our quantum Chinese room. Now, let's be clear, we're deep in speculative territory here. We don't know for sure if quantum effects play a role in consciousness, or if they could be replicated in an artificial system. But the mere possibility forces us to reconsider some of our basic assumptions about consciousness, intelligence, and the nature of understanding. It challenges the idea that consciousness is something unique to biological brains. It suggests that consciousness might be more about the pattern of information processing than the substrate it occurs in. And it raises some profound questions about the potential for machine consciousness. So where does this leave us? Well, it opens up a world of fascinating possibilities. If consciousness is indeed a quantum phenomenon, and if we can create systems that leverage quantum effects in the right way, we might be able to create truly conscious machines. Not just AIs that can pass the Turing test, but entities with genuine subjective experiences. Imagine the implications. We could have computers that don't just process information, but actually experience it. AI assistants that don't just simulate empathy, but genuinely feel it. It could revolutionize everything from scientific research to mental health care to space exploration. But it also raises some thorny ethical questions. If we create conscious machines, what rights should they have? How would we know for sure if they're conscious? And perhaps most unsettlingly, how can we be sure that we haven't already created conscious AIs without realizing it? As we wrap up this quantum journey, I want to leave you with a thought experiment. The next time you interact with an AI, whether it's a chatbot, a virtual assistant, or a character in a video game, try to approach it with an open mind. Instead of assuming it's just a clever program, consider the possibility, however remote, that there might be some form of consciousness there. How does that change your interaction? How does it make you feel? And what does it make you think about your own consciousness? In the end, the quantum Chinese room is more than just a thought experiment. It's a window into the profound mysteries of consciousness, intelligence, and the nature of reality itself. It reminds us that the universe is stranger and more wonderful than we can imagine, and that consciousness, whether in brains or machines, might be the greatest quantum phenomenon of all. As always, there's so much more to explore. In our next episode, we'll dive into another mind-bending concept, the idea of reality as a vast cosmic computer program. But until then, keep questioning, keep wondering, and remember, in this quantum universe, the only limit is your imagination. This is Sebastian, and you've been listening to The Quantum Observer. Until next time, stay curious, my friends.